as it relates to for all those people who are following me and having me trying to link the FinSAP with the SSF.
Regarding Prime Minister Andrew Holness's financial dealings have cast a shadow over his leadership, with the Integrity Commission (IC) report raising critical questions about his company's tax filings, significant monetary transfers, and overall transparency. The investigation, which uncovered 28 additional bank accounts and flagged discrepancies in the movement of over $400 million across Holness's personal companies, points to breaches of financial regulations. One of the key issues raised in the IC's report was the filing of NIL tax returns by companies connected to Holness, despite some of them reportedly engaging in business activities. The case of Green Emerald giving a $20 million loan to Positive Media Limited, while filing zero tax returns, exemplifies this discrepancy. While the IC acknowledged that companies can provide loans even when operating at a loss, it emphasized that the larger issue lies in the lack of disclosed income and expenses, which raises red flags regarding transparency and adherence to tax laws. Furthermore, the IC highlighted the movement of substantial sums between Holness-linked entities, such as the transfer of $72 million from Positive Media Limited to Imperium Limited. Such transactions have raised suspicions about whether these companies have been operating with undeclared income or expenses. The Commission's decision to refer Holness's financial dealings to the Financial Investigations Division, FID, signals that there may be deeper layers of undisclosed activity. Holness has publicly defended himself, insisting that his success is the result of hard work and that no illicit activity has been proven. He emphasized that 3,600 transactions and 28 bank accounts were scrutinized without any evidence of illicit enrichment. However, the IC report suggests that the complexity of Holness's financial affairs has hindered a full conclusion of the investigation, especially given his refusal to provide certain critical information. The Prime Minister's legal team is now preparing to pursue a judicial review of the IC's decision to refer his case to the FID. They are seeking to leverage Section 6(3)(a) of the Integrity Commission Act, which provides the IC with independence in its investigations, subject only to judicial review. This legal route suggests that Holness is prepared to challenge the IC's findings and actions, which further complicates the narrative. Holness's political opponents, particularly opposition leader Mark Golding, have seized on the report to argue that the Prime Minister's credibility is severely damaged. Golding called for Holness to step aside or call fresh elections, asserting that the IC's inability to certify the Prime Minister's declarations has tainted Jamaica's reputation, both locally and internationally. He further contended that the movement of millions between Holness's companies and the filing of NIL tax returns are indicative of possible violations of Jamaica's tax laws, warranting deeper investigation. On the other hand, while Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal JAMP Executive Director Jeanette Calder welcomed the finding that Holness had not been implicated in illicit enrichment, she noted the extraordinary findings concerning his foundation, Positive Jamaica. Calder also expressed concern about Holness's criticism of the IC, interpreting his statements as an attempt to politicize the investigative process and undermine the Commission's credibility. Analysis. This unfolding saga reveals two central dynamics. First, Holness's defense rests on the argument that he has done nothing wrong, and that the extensive investigation has yielded no concrete evidence of corruption or illicit enrichment. His narrative centers around his humble beginnings and the fruits of his hard work, which positions him as a victim of unfair scrutiny. However, the sheer complexity of his financial dealings and his company's apparent non-compliance with tax regulations suggest there may be deeper governance and transparency issues at play. Second, the opposition and civil society's framing of the situation focuses on the broader implications for Jamaica's governance and international standing. The referral of Holness's case to the FID highlights concerns about financial irregularities, even if they do not rise to the level of criminality. The opposition's call for the Prime Minister to step aside underscores the gravity of the IC's findings and the potential political fallout. Conclusion. Whether or not Prime Minister Holness has engaged in illegal activities remains a matter for the courts and investigative bodies to determine. However, this controversy underscores the importance of transparency, ethical governance, and the need for clear accountability in public office. Holness's challenge of the IC's findings through a judicial review could set a significant precedent in how integrity investigations involving high-ranking officials are handled in Jamaica. Your thoughts on this matter might center around whether Holness is being unfairly targeted, or whether the magnitude of his financial activities should prompt stricter scrutiny. What is clear is that this episode has significant implications for the Prime Minister's political future and Jamaica's political landscape.
As I was coming on, I was thinking about Bob Marley's song, Babylon System. And in, one of the verses says, we refuse to be what you wanted us to be. We are what we are. And that's the way it's going to be.
That clip, and the Prime Minister, in his defense, is saying that he works very hard, right, to attain what he has. But the problem is, as it relates to the Integrity Commission, right, where the Integrity Commission investigation has been halted as a result of the Integrity Commission investigators asking Andrew Holness to clarify, right, his source of wealth, right, as it relates to the justification of his income and the wealth that he amassed. And as such, the Prime Minister refused. And so then the situation did, of course, as we know, recommend to FID. And we know that FID, you understand, as it relates to the anticipation of the court, right? And they get the authorization to go ahead that FID is going to proceed and try to go as way back, right? Because we know that FID had done investigation in SSL. And let me say this, people, in terms of where we are going tonight, FID had gone back, way back, right, to 2010. I want to ask a question as it relates to the anticipation of the court proceeding. And let me just bring Brother Ratigan, with the legal mind, the legal experience, right? Brother Ratigan, as it relates to, the Prime Minister seeking judiciary review, right? The question is, if the court kick that out, where the Prime Minister goes from there, right? Can you take us and give us some clarity where that is concerned?
Yeah. The one thing we're not sure of is, where does FID stand right now? Is FID conducting an investigation, or is FID waiting to see what the court is going to say? We don't know. I would hope that they will just continue their investigation, because, courts are all over the world, not just Jamaica. Delays.
Yes.
And so if I were in charge of it, I'd just move forward, because there is no prohibition against conducting the investigation right now. So I would go ahead and do it until the court, the court makes a ruling. Now, if it's kicked out, if the court says, no, we're not going to grant leave for you to file judicial review, then FID, it's not just FID, it's FID, FSC, TAJ, and then even the Parliament, they can move forward with the Ethics Committee, can move forward and start doing what they need to do. I suspect that the Parliament is not doing anything at this point, because they're going to wait. Yeah, they're not going to do anything. They're going to wait. But TAJ, FSC, and FID, they can. If I were in their position, I would be doing the investigation right now. Time, we can't waste time. You know what I mean? And then also, what people need to understand, and I don't think a lot of people know this, is that FID is part of a group called Edgemont Group, EGMONT. And it's a group of financial analysts and investigators all over the world. That's their little group. That's their network. And FID can ask Egmont to go ahead and start providing information from overseas, because I have my suspicions about the 28 bank accounts. If all of them, if they're only in Jamaica, I don't know. So I would say, hey, you know what? Go ahead and start looking overseas. Look in places like St. Lucia. Look in places like America, Cayman, Bahamas, Panama, Canada, even Switzerland. I would start looking and to determine. And one thing I would tell FID right now, FID, if you and I know if FID members are not listening, affiliates, friends, family members of FID employees are watching and listening. Please tell FID when they go to Egmont, or even if they don't go to Egmont, tell them that there's one person that they need to interview, and that one person is the CG in New York. They need to lean on that lady, because if there's one person I think overseas who would know what's going on with the Prime Minister finances, they should ask her. Right? We're not accusing her of anything, but given her background in high finance, and given the fact that they said, the government of Jamaica said, the reason why they gave her that job, two reasons. One, because of her financial prowess, and two, because of her philanthropic activities. She give her things. She know how to make money, and she give her things. Well, if somebody know how to make money and you put them and you give them a job, then certainly if there's a money matter concerning you, we should be looking at that person. And I guarantee you, if they approach her and have federal investigators talk to her. And by the way, CG, if you're listening, if you didn't hear Saturday, you're going to hear now. When the investigators come to your door, please do not lie to them. Please do not lie to them. Tell them everything. If they ask about the Prime Minister, tell them everything you know. Don't tell them things you don't know. Don't tell life on the Prime Minister. But don't tell life on yourself either. You know, just tell them everything you know, and just free your mind, free your spirit, and then work out a deal so that you don't have to go back to Jamaica. They can keep you here. Because if you talk and you go back to Jamaica, then anything is possible. But it's less likely if you stay here. But they need to lean on this woman. So that's where we are. FID should continue doing their investigation. If it's thrown out, FID is going to move ahead. And it's not just FID, TAJ, FSC, and hopefully the Parliament. But the Parliament piece, we don't expect much, because that's the ethical piece. It's a piece where they're saying, you know, Mr. Prime Minister, you can't hire your partner in the construction business. You have a firm called Estate Bridge Holdings. You can't hire him for run two agencies who are in charge of doing development for the country of Jamaica. You can't do that. Plus, Mr. Prime Minister, we know said millions of dollars that went into your account came from him through cardless deposits in ATM machines. We know that because we see it in the report. All right. And then the question is, why would somebody who work in your ministry, because the Prime Minister is a minister of economic growth and job creation. And those two offices, they fall under that portfolio. And you're a business partner with him. Why would you have this man run all over the place and deposit money and deposit it to your account? Why? Why not just make him give? Is there something that they're trying to hide? I don't know. So the ethics part of it, I don't think the present composition of the Parliament will take any pleasure or any serious attitude towards this. I don't think so. And then there's another one about what is it, insider trading and things like that, where you become aware of information simply because you're in the Parliament, and then you trade on that information. Yeah. And so they're saying that they need to look at that. But we don't expect, because remember now, the Proceeds of Crime Act, that was supposed to have passed already. And as a result of it not passing, and as a result of the Prime Minister now saying that he wants the Section 14, subsection 5 of the Prevention of Corruption Act, that's illicit enrichment piece. He wants that to be repealed. Now, guess what? Everything is a domino effect now. CMOC, right? That's the group that was formed in 2020 to transform the police and help out with the judiciary, help out with legislation and all this stuff. Now they are up in arms because they said, look, corruption is one of the top priorities. And how can we have the Prime Minister come now and say, we want to get rid of this thing that's supposed to hold people like him accountable? By the way, Mystic and Sid, I don't know if you're aware of this. There's something called legislative history. And what it means is that whenever there's a bill and there's a discussion, there's a record of that discussion. I'm trying to get the record now because the Prevention of Corruption Act was passed in was it 2000, 2001. The Prime Minister was in Parliament, I believe, at that time. So we're going back now to look to see what did he say about the corruption, Section 14, subsection 5 at the time. If you can say, yeah, this is a good provision, and now it's not good because it's against him. So we're going to go back and look at that. So a lot of work still to be done, but we're up to the task, my brother.
All right. Before I bring Sister Maria in, right, and let you go, Ratty, I just want to ask just one more question.
Sure.
Right. And I'm giving on just a hypothetical scenario.
Okay.
Now, here we are. If the court kicked out the so-called judiciary review application and FID en route now to investigate, we have the understanding as it relates to all Jamaicans, right? And where all the legal bodies have an understanding that, okay, it's only 28 accounts involved. Now, if FID pursuing the investigation and now discovered, because you have been spoken about that lady there, and it's a new disclosure that the Prime Minister had other accounts, and now that the Prime Minister have room, let me say this, people have room, right, to now speak the truth. If there are any other accounts, because remember, the Integrity Commission asked the Prime Minister if there are any other accounts involved with a locally or internationally. But let me ask you, in this scenario, what if FID find other accounts? What will be the consequence for the Prime Minister?
Well, if it should come across as account, like a word that you use a lot, bangarang, because because now you can clearly see that he lied when he submitted his application, because they did ask him about accounts locally and overseas. And if he didn't give them any overseas accounts, and now they go and they find overseas accounts, he's finished. He's finished. I mean, now we're really looking at jail time. We're looking at prison time.
Okay, very good. And so then we see the reason as to why, right, the Prime Minister on a mission not to have FID, right, pursue an investigation into him. So we need to just make the people know that. Sister Maria, I know you are anticipating to respond, right? Please utilize the space. All right, let us hear your input, Sister Maria.
Yeah, it is not possible to prove illicit enrichment if the Prime Minister fails to comply and provide the necessary information that the IC would need to follow to prove. So you one way or the other, nobody knows. So it can, to say that when they say that there's no proof of illicit enrichment, nobody knows. We don't know, because he hasn't given the information necessary, which is sources of income. That is necessary to prove that all his wealth was not gotten through hard work. Because if he works so hard and accumulates all that wealth, then the same thing applies to any and every Jamaican, that they can go out and do the very same thing. Now, when it comes to, I'm baffled by, he's a legislature. The legislature crafts legislation and implements them, laws requiring the Jamaican people to comply. And when they ask the Jamaican people to comply, if they do not, then they face consequences. Why is it different for the Prime Minister? What kind of example is he setting? What is the precedent here when the Prime Minister is taking a government body, to court because they dared to investigate him and go where no one had ever ventured before? So if he is saying, because we always have to go back to Richard Azan, and he said Richard Azan helping poor people was a dark day. So what do you call Andrew Holness's non-compliance with the Integrity Commission out Armageddon, because I don't see how he can square that away with the Jamaican people, and it is accepted. You cannot explain this away, right? And another thing, Ratigan talk about the parliament, the unethical cannot investigate the unethical. So nothing is going to happen there. So it now rests on civic society, the Jamaican people at large, and people within the social media space to hold him accountable and do whatever we can to hold him accountable and keep ventilating the issues until they get it. Because, you talk about what if he's found to have more accounts, nothing would happen to him. It's a Jamaican space. Nothing would happen. He has a parliament that backs him 1,000%, no matter what. And him having 28 bank accounts doesn't faze them. So if he has 2 more, 3 more, 4 more, they're going to say, oh, but he's the prime minister. He works so hard, he forgets things, and it is logical. Nobody would have a problem with that because they do not have a problem with the 28. What they have a problem with is the Integrity Commission doing their best, given their limited resources, to hold everybody accountable. But when it touches the prime minister, he is the sacred cow. You don't go down that route. And that is so sad for everybody. And this is an election year. And he's saying to the Jamaican people, oh, never mind my 28 bank accounts that I cannot explain, and never mind my lack of compliance, total compliance with the Integrity Commission. Vote for me, and anyhow. You have 7 more parliamentarians on the investigation for illicit enrichment. Oh, we're not going to share their names, but vote for them. We don't know who they are, and because nobody knows who they are, everybody's a suspect. Everybody's a suspect. So you have to treat them accordingly. And it is a mighty shame. And given the level of corruption that is running rampant through Jamaica, $1.7 trillion unaccounted for, various ministries, health, education, office of the prime minister. You have in the tax administration a building that they're spending $400 million on, unoccupied. Now to retrofit that same building is going to cost another $1 billion+. Okay? That makes some sense. You have a member of parliament who has a building that he's also renting to the tax administration. All of those add to the corruption. And then you have the prime minister, as Ratty alluded to earlier, who has his business partners in strategic agencies where they benefit from whatever contracts that is given out. So the prime minister can give contracts to himself and turn around and take the same taxpayer dollars and pay himself. So it is a maze of confusion when it comes to anything and everything relating to the prime minister right now in Jamaica, the current state of affairs. And anybody who thinks it's normal needs to have their head examined, because this is not normal behavior. This is totally unacceptable. This is untenable. This is incurable. And no political party and no government should be allowed to go down this road and should be allowed to continue and their behavior go unchecked. It is a mighty shame, and I hope something comes of this. And if the courts, my question to Ratigan, what if the courts decide to grant him the judicial review? Where then do they go from there?
Well, that's a good question. Before I answer, let me just say, let me make a change that statement. I've mentioned that the Proceeds of Crime Act, that they didn't pass it. They actually have a Proceeds of Crime Act. What they were supposed to do was to amend it by March of 2022 to include something called unexplained work orders.
Yes.
Which is an expansion of Section 14.5. It's an expansion of illicit enrichment, and they haven't done it. So it's not that they didn't pass the Proceeds of Crime Act. It's passed. It's just that they didn't amend it to include unexplained. What do you call it? Unexplained. Let me see that. UWOs. I think it's unexplained work orders. Let me see. Wealth. Unexplained wealth orders, which is an expansion of the illicit enrichment clause. Now, sis, you say what would happen if they're granted? Well, here's a weird thing. They didn't name the Attorney General, and the Attorney General is the one who's going to have to defend the government, because remember now, it's the government suing the government, right? It's not a private citizen suing the government. It's the Prime Minister, is part of the government, suing the government. The government. So, right. So the government will now have to be represented by the Attorney General. That's the usual process. There have been cases where the Attorney General and the private counsel are involved, and there have been cases where the Attorney General kind of give the private counsel some leeway. So now the Prime Minister now is going to have to face up. His attorneys will have to face up against the Attorney General, Mr. Derek McKay. And if the way I see it playing out, it's not going to be the end of it. If the court should rule in favor of the Prime Minister, there must be an appeal. Civil society, religious community, academia, everybody must come out at this point and say, no, we can't have remember, no, they didn't pass the unexplained wealth orders. And if they repeal the illicit enrichment, then what's this? We might as well just say it's a free-for-all now. Just say everybody become a politician and we can just thief. Because nobody can ask any questions about how come you live in a $100 million house, but you only make 20 million or 5 million or whatever the number is, but it not match up. So this thing, and also, if he should win, I guarantee you, this is gonna make worldwide news. It's gonna make worldwide. It's gonna be bad for Jamaica, because now foreign investors, they're gonna shy away from Jamaica. Jamaica's rating on the corruption index is gonna go up. Right now, I think it's like 40, between 38 and 42. And anything below 50 is considered very corrupt. And Jamaica has consistently hovered around between 38 and 42. With this,
the last time I checked it, Ratigan, it was 44. So had it reduced to please down?
Yeah, I think it's when did you check it? I think it's like 42. In any event, the one thing I'm sure of, it's below 50.
Yes.
And anything below 50 is considered highly corrupt. Right. And with the Prime Minister with this, and the court rule in his favor, it's going to dip even further. So there's going to be an appeal. And here's the thing. Should he lose, the question is, will he appeal? Because now he's going to bring even more scrutiny to what he's doing.
Exactly.
Worldwide, global scrutiny. And if he doesn't appeal, it's going to look like, okay, something not going right as well. And then people will say, well, if he's never guilty, why not appeal? So he put himself in a very bad position. Mr. Prime Minister, if you listen to me, Mystic and Maria, what you should have done, you should have just do like where everybody else in Jamaica, 9-day wonder. Just keep your mouth quiet and just make the thing just go away. Because guess what happened now? Guess what happened? You see the 5 people them killed at the football match last night? That would not be the news, you know. It wouldn't, the Prime Minister, nobody would not talk about him by now. Something else would have overtaken the story and gone. But him too big and bright. And him think like, well, then Jamaica and playground, him can do whatever I want. This thing broke, it get to him head. Him start really think that him supreme and him can do whatever I want to do. So what is he hearing? It's this month or next month?
November 7th.
7th, okay, all right. All right, so I won't go anywhere. I'll be around for that.
All right. But Ratigan, you made a very good point about his ego. He's ego tripping because he's the youngest prime minister, and he talks about his legacy and his legacy. But here's what he fails to realize: he's the most corrupt. Corruption is the worst. I don't know if Baron's going to play his the Don Anderson poetry. 2 out of what?
Yeah, you're right. 2 out of 3.
Right. 2 out of 3 persons believe. I think it was you, Ratigan. Yeah, 2 out of 3 persons believe that the country is
more corrupt than it was 5 years ago.
Thank you very much. And who was the government 5 years ago? Who was the government 5 years ago? He was the government 5 years ago. So you see, and the thing is, remember now, that this is a man who had his members of his opposition sign undated resignation letters, which was it was a violation of the Constitution. He was opposition then. And look at all the violations of the Constitution that has happened since he became Prime Minister. He doesn't care. He really doesn't care.
Exactly. How should I call it? A little gimmicks in the mix to show you how, I mean, the Jamaican party or the Jamaican party is actually imploding. And where you have even bloggers are getting confused. So let's just let us just put a little, you know, twist in the mix, right, where that is concerned. Let us hear what this gentleman has to say, right? Because it seems like we are now converting some diet in labor right.
Me attack to you now, labor rights. One super debris we wash from everywhere. And he just throw them out, them just spread out all over the internet, people. And if you, an intelligent person, ever drop in a them circle, you don't need that. We lead and understand that, so we don't understand that too. Yeah, man. Lowest of the low. Yeah.
Well on the people. Well on the people. Wait. Because I think we need to play back in a Vegas that. Say, we lead and don't have no standard. So we don't have no standard too. People, please, don't vex with me, you know. Allow me, let me just play back one more time. Make me just play back one more time. We want to know if this is what we are hearing from Vegas. Or of Vegas we are listening to. What Vegas you say? But that one thing.
Well done. Share.
Yeah, man. Set it up, wifey. Because we want me the people to understand. Want me the people to understand.
I think he's being sarcastic.
One load of debris on the internet. Ready?
Me attack to you now, labor rights. One super debris we wash from everywhere. And he just throw them out, them just spread out all over the internet, people. And if you, an intelligent person, ever drop in a them circle, you don't need that. We lead and understand that, so we don't understand that too. Yeah, man. Lowest of the low. Yeah.
No. Ratty. No.
It's a bit personal, my friend.
But I think he's being sarcastic. I honestly think he's being sarcastic. And on the other hand, he could really look at it and say, no, something, this looks bad. Because when you juxtapose Andrew and the poor people, which is a majority, there are lots of questions that are left unanswered. And you have to say, the optics of the Prime Minister having 28 bank accounts looks very bad. Forget forget all the other details of the IC report. The Prime Minister of a small island like Jamaica has 28 bank accounts. I'm 100% sure President Biden, who presides over 300 million people, the mightiest military in the world's largest economy, does not have 28 bank accounts. Yet Andrew Holness, presiding over a country of almost over 3 million people, has 28 bank accounts. The country is dirt poor. They're not getting any money from their natural resources. So you see how this could start looking problematic, because when you look at it, the optics alone is enough. And I'm sure you give this report to any sane person. The question that I get asked when I discuss by anybody outside of Jamaica is, and he's still the Prime Minister? Why has he not been investigated and charged? So you see, it's crazy.
You know, the funny thing is, it's not funny. In my professional experience, the people that I would normally say with numerous bank accounts like this, And I'm not accusing the Prime Minister of being a money launderer or anything, but those are the people that I used to say with this many bank accounts. People who are involved in moving money around and doing all that stuff. And so that's why we become suspicious. We're not accusing him, but there's nothing wrong with saying we're suspicious about our Prime Minister having 28 bank accounts. I think if you add it up, if you think about it, how many Prime Ministers have we had? We had Buster, Sangster, Shearer, Siaga, Manley, Golding.
No, yes. PJ Portia Golding.
PJ Portia Golding. 8. Right? I'm willing to bet you that if you add up all 8 of them, them not come up with 28 bank accounts.
Which is true. You're right. You're perfectly right, sir.
That means that because 8 of them, no, so them each will have to have 4. Right? Am I right?
Yeah, man.
No. That would no. You're the Portland mayor. You're the Portland mayor, Matt. Stop it. That's the 32 bank accounts.
324. They would have 3 point something accounts.
Yes.
They would have that.
Yes.
Right. Almost 4. Right. I'm sure. Say, if you add up all of that, them probably not have them. Each of them not have them. Them not have 3 accounts, 3, 4 accounts. Them not have it. Right. And even if them have it, it's still bad that you have to have 8 prime ministers. You have to add up all of them account for come to FEMA. And by the way, remember now, we only know about 28.
Exactly. Like you point out that right.
About 28. Because remember now, remember said 4, you never tell them about 4. Never tell them about 4. I remember the first investigation, I believe him never tell them about 1, either 1 or 2. You know, there were some accounts, maybe 1 or 2 accounts in the first investigation where them never know about, where them find out, and then them find out about the other 4. So, and then them come up and say, well, one of them, we don't know how many in the panic. We don't know. So it's only 28. We don't know how many more out there.
All right. People, there you have it. So, Sister Maria, of course, I'm going to ask you, do you have any response, right, to what the candidate just spoke about?
Of course, me not afraid that no boy, no girl, no time, no way. Not all. No, but seriously, you know, I'm listening to that and I'm I'm being reminded. And the thing is, you can never exhaust the Integrity Commission report because every time you read it, something jumps out at you. But the one thing that I still cannot wrap my brain around is how the Prime Minister was able to open an account with $0 and 0 cents, not even 1 cent.
There you go.
Not even a cent. You see what I'm saying? And the thing is now, I was speaking with Fantastic Five, you know. As a matter of fact, one of her nephews, bright young man, he's a medical doctor. And we're talking, you know. And he said, what people in his circle are saying is, how can the Prime Minister open an account with no money? So Fantastic Five said, something, somebody should just go down to the bank, the same bank, and just for the heck of it, say, I'm here to open an account. Okay, how much money? I don't have no money. But you need money. But the Prime Minister opened an account without money. I'm coming here to do the same thing. He's the leader. And see what would happen. And see, because he set the president in a Ratigan. He set that precedent in a opening. And another thing too, I know we're going to get to SSL. Money deposited into his account, apart from money is just being deposited, via ATMs and whatever. No trace of who it comes from. But also money deposited into his account from SSL. But there's no record of him putting money into SSL, but he got money from SSL. So all these things you have to, so when he's telling people what he's going to sue and he's going to sue, the Integrity Commission gave a report, and that is what we're talking about. That is what for up to now to the election and until this is resolved, whether through FID or whatever, we have to dissect the IC report, and we'll never be able to finish it unless and until there is some resolution through the investigation by the Financial Investigation Division of the Finance Ministry.
Two quick things. One is, Justice Panton last week said in Parliament that everything in the Integrity Commission's report is
factual. Yes, exactly.
Factual.
Exactly.
And then, brothers and sisters, family members, listeners, viewers, Mystic, and Maria Byron, and sis, I want to do me a favor. I want to go to Jamaica to a company like Barita, and I want to go and say, look, we want a $50 million loan, you know, and collateral. I'm going to give you collateral after you give me the money. I'm going to buy the collateral. That's give me the money.
Ratty, I like how you break it down. Ratigan, I love how you break it down. 50 million, banana collateral. Me give me the money first and then me give you the collateral.
We want to go buy, we give you title and then you can use that. And by the way, some of the collateral, we don't have a seat for about 6 months. But we're not good with that. 6 months are good time. You know, me not run with. Me not run with. Me have no money, me not going away. We want to see when I do that because guess what? That is exactly what the Prime Minister did.
Exactly.